Well, good evening, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 29th of October here, Saturday evening. Here we're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. A lot to cover here. We'll end our story here tonight with meeting an awesome human, Dr. Ben Carson. Again, just a fantastic guy, and we'll talk about that here at the end. But a lot to cover here tonight. Ocean temperature cycles are playing a huge role, and we've got an unusual one at that. We've got this third year La Niña. We've got a cold negative PDO phase in the North Pacific and a very warm positive AMO phase. This 3-year La Nina with these two other phases only happened twice in history, 1950 and 2000. So again, out of the last 157 years. So unusual for sure. The good news is the model's right here, generally in agreement that La Nina is probably about to peak here late this fall, early winter, and then begin to head toward neutral to possibly El Nino, as we believe, by at some point in the summer next year in 2023, which will lead to a wholesale change in the climatic weather patterns here. In the more near-term thing, the thing to be watching will be unlike last year, to see if the polar vortex will be a little more ragged, as it is kind of here. A more ragged polar vortex can allow cold air to leave the North Pole and head south into the U.S., Asia, Europe. So we'll see. Last year was very, very strong, so we had a record hot December. We don't believe that to be the case here. We think it'll be a little bit weak, in part because of some Fiji volcano back about a year ago. So again, some of that has influenced the Southern Hemisphere polar vortex, and we think it'll have a little bit of an impact on the Northern Hemisphere as well. With all this cold trends here, we'll talk about how cold October was here in the south and the east. But cold early in October leads to a flu spike, and we certainly have that. So if you look at the chart right here, it's that 2002 is flu is way above baseline. It's off to a very, very fast start for sure. The good news is good news, bad news is type A, which is what we had last year. So there's probably going to be some herd immunity in the population here. So this might be one of those seasons where we had like maybe a quick fall, late fall spike here, and then maybe just trails off as we go through the winter months. Last year, the spike was around Christmas time, again, type A season with a COVID spike. You see that huge, monstrous spike last year. Good news is COVID chart left is, again, continuing kind of baseline. We'll see. There's really not a lot of subvariants that we probably all haven't been exposed to at this stage. So we'll see, unlike last year when Omicron and Delta and whatnot were all coming online right around this time. So that led to the huge spike last year. So right now, let's hope maybe just a quick flu burst here in the south. You see the map there, south and east, because of the really cold conditions. We'll look at the year-over-year trends here for the U.S. overall fall. So again, the milder September and then the bottom falling out here in October. And now a moderating trend here at the start November. Maybe a few periods of colder weather. This is charts are showing the year-on-year trends here, these bars. And then we think the bottom does fall out in December with a colder, snowier month. So it'll be the next big surge for seasonal merchandise sales. For winter seasonal sales will be in December. We've probably bought a lot of our fall gear that we need to handle moderately cool conditions here in October. If we look at the October preliminary summary here, almost in the history books, a couple more days here. But overall, October looks like it's going to end up about 5.2 degrees colder than last year. Huge gains in seasonal sales. Coldest in 13 years nationally. 13th coldest in 37 years. So below average temperatures. Southeast coldest in 11. Northeast coldest in 13. Warm spot is a little misleading. Again, the West has been the warmest in 6 years because they were very, very hot start, but now they're getting some cold and snow. So just about everybody across the country has had their cold trends, so driving some, again, strong demand here for some fall seasonal sales at full price, so it benefits retailers. So they may do a little better than expected. Overall, October is about 51% drier than a year ago, driest in 34 years, so still very dry. That's typical of this cycle that we're in. In fact, the entire Northern Hemisphere is kind of dry and mild is the general theme of the oceanic cycle we're in. Third driest in 37 years. You can see that wet, mostly white in the high elevations of the West there in terms of precip. If we look at the last week's summer here now, so this week ending 29th October, this is the last week of the October for retailers. Here in the U.S., it was about 0.6 degrees colder than last year. Ninth warmest in 37 years, above average. Again, the flip-flop pattern went to the cold, shifted to the west and Alaska and most of western Canada, while the east and northeast and southeast Canada warmed up. 62% drier than last year, driest in 6 years, about 18th wettest rather in 37 years. So in the middle of the pack, near average. Very, very hot there in Europe, UK, near record hot, number one hottest in over 37 years. Still a little bit cool trends down in Australia, again, where people live. And again, world overall was, again, obviously very hot with this cycle. Maps inset left for the trends versus average. Looking at this week here, getting into the first few days of November, kind of scary here how quickly the year is about to end here. For the U.S. overall, about 7.4 warmer than last year. So we're going to have a warm week this week for sure in the east. It'll maybe hit some 70s here where we've already had major frost and freezes here in eastern PA, but may hit near 70. So we'll be a little bit of a reprieve here from the cold, 4 or 5 weeks of cold. Warmest in 6 years nationally, third warmest in 37 years. So again, same general trend, cold west, hot east. Precip, a little bit more, still 42% drier than last year, but fifth driest in 37 years. Let's hope they get some of that rain in the central plains. It's this spotty thunder shower type activity, battle between cold and warm, but we'll see. They desperately need it in that drought stricken area there. Map bottom left there is the precip trends versus average. If we look at 6 day snowfall again, it's pretty much just in the high elevations. It's not even really hitting any of our major 260 metro areas, but up a bit. A little misleading here. Up 107% over last year. Still 58% below average and 14th least in 37 years. So not a lot of snow where people live, but certainly the mountains out west are getting white, even in parts of the Sierra where they'll take it. Also have to watch the tropics. They're just kind of exploding here with tropical waves coming off Africa, the Caribbean. There's just all kinds of stuff out there. So any of these things can flare up. So this is kind of unusual for this late in the season here, but definitely going to probably get a name storm in the Caribbean here. Let's see if that can stay south of the Gulf of Mexico. TBD on that. But again, tropics are something to watch. There's several systems beyond this. So into week 2, a lot of activity. Looking at next week, again, through 6 through 12 November, here in the U.S., about 0.3 cooler than last year, coolest in 3 years, still 11th warmest in 37 years, but not the extremes that we have seen this week. So moderating in the west, moderating in the east, still above average east. Rainfall still 69% drier than a year ago, driest in 9 years, third driest in 37 years, so not much change on that. Don't forget to turn your clocks back here Sunday night, this coming weekend, 6th November at 2 in the morning. Again, get an extra hour of sleep, and then Election Day, Tuesday, November 8th. Again, get out there and vote. And for the nation as a whole, looks like it's going to be, second driest in 37 years. About 98% of the country looks to be dry on Election Day. So no excuses to get out there and do our civic duty. Real quick, we'll end here with the World 2 Week Outlook. Again, general theme is warm east, cold west in the U.S., and warm in Europe, and cool down there in Australia, where they had kind of cool trends. Got to meet this fine gentleman here at a charity event here in Bethlehem here this past week. Dr. Ben Carson, just fascinating story, great speaker, full of humility, just all around, as we like to say, a great human. So it was just a great event. Me and Mrs. Captain Kirk got to meet him, and won't tell no time here now to talk about the funny cake story. But here again, this could have been a disaster. But again, we'll talk maybe another day about the 2 cakes. So any event, fascinating guy, nice to meet him, and. With that, folks, we will end here and have a great week.